Welcome to this week's episode of Insight. We're going to be focusing entirely on foreign policy issues on this week's show. We're going to start with the agreement between Iran and the United States to end the war for now. And then we're going to move on to Israel's recognition of the Armenian Genocide last week. And then we're going to close with what appears to be an ever-intensifying campaign by the Aliyev regime on this Western Azerbaijan issue, which is to lay the groundwork for future aggression against Armenia. 2 weeks ago, Iran and the United States inked a 60-day deal to temporarily end the war that's been going on for a few months in our region. In the time period of the 60 days, a lot of U.S. sanctions are lifted on Iranian exports and oil sales around the world, while Israel is compelled to stop attacking Lebanon, which they clearly have not, and the Iranians are supposed to open up the Strait of Hormuz. The next step is to actually use this 60-day period to negotiate a permanent peace and an agreement on Iran's nuclear program, along with Iran getting sanctions relief on the economic side. Is this likely to hold? Probably not, even though I think both Iran and the United States, for their own very different reasons, actually want to settle this issue. But I suspect the most important regional country, which is Israel, and its leader are hell-bent on making sure that this does not reach an agreement, a final agreement. And I suspect they will find ways to blow it up when all is said and done. Now, what does all of this mean for us? Frankly, ending the war in and of itself is a good thing because it allows normal trade to happen between the Gulf and Armenia, and goods coming in from the south, from the Persian Gulf, and obviously weapons deliveries that come from India. In any way you look at it, normalized Iranian-U.S. relations, to the extent that's possible, is always very good for Armenia because we have reasonable relations or good relations with actually both. Anything that actually lessens sanctions on the Iranian economy actually makes our life a lot easier because we obviously still have two closed borders, and having normal relations with Iran without restrictions would be most ideal. And lastly, the more normalized relations between Tehran and Washington get, less relevant Baku is in all of these equations. And as we know, and as we've learned through multiple stories, that that country is actually used for consistent attacks on Iran, mostly by Israeli special forces and drones. Last weekend, the Israeli cabinet voted unanimously to recognize the Armenian Genocide and to send legislation to the Israeli Knesset to do the same, the Knesset being their parliament. This is obviously in response to the ever-worsening relations between Ankara and Tel Aviv. What are we to make of this? Frankly, I could care less. This would have meant something a few years ago, but it means almost nothing today. What is, however, important in this is not the recognition, is what do these ever-worsening relations between these two countries and regional powers mean for us? More importantly, what opportunities do they create for us? The truth is that the worsening of these relations are actually quite good for us, and the eventual conflict, when it comes, is even better, primarily because it's going to push our enemies in Baku to the corner, and they'll be forced to choose between Ankara and Tel Aviv, and at the end of the day, they are almost certain to choose Ankara. Now, why am I so conflicted about these worsening relations? Because what we're seeing now is it's very obvious that Israel and her supporters are laying the groundwork for this future war with Turkey. You're seeing somewhat of a similar program that started against Iran a few decades ago. That narrative and all those people have moved on to targeting Turkey for obvious reasons, because Israel's project is to actually eliminate all regional rivals or to cut them down to size, not to be able to challenge Israeli hegemony over the issue. In the long run, in the middle and long run, this is almost certainly going to lead into a shooting war. If I was to guess, probably in Syria. Many people believe that this won't happen because of NATO, because Turkey is in NATO, but I think people are misunderstanding to what extent have traditional institutional setups collapsed. So these things that actually would have meant something to stop such a conflict 10 years ago are no longer here. And if you understand the ever more right-wing drift of Israeli politics, 5-10 years from now, the people that replace Benjamin Netanyahu, some of them, will make him look like a human rights activist. This means, most likely, is that over the next 10 years, it's very likely, especially as Azerbaijan moves into the post-oil era, that the relationships between Israel and Armenia and Israel and Azerbaijan are quite likely to switch, and you're already seeing that. There's a lot of cooperation with Israel. Israeli firms are working with Armenian IT firms. They actually have offices here, and there's ever-growing tourism. So what I suspect is that over the next 10 years, we're likely to be in a position to have much more improved relations with Israel. Now we're going to move on to the Baku regime's Western Azerbaijan attack on Armenia. Less than 2 weeks after the Armenian parliamentary elections, Azerbaijan's leadership renewed on Thursday its demand for Armenia to allow a mass influx of Azerbaijanis who lived there in Soviet times. In quotes, "Every Western Azerbaijani has a right to return to the land of their ancestors," said Deputy Parliament Speaker Ziafet Askerov during a festival conference on their return to Western Azerbaijan organized by the Azerbaijani government in the Nakhchivan exclave. In quotes, "Return is the legal, historical, and moral right of Western Azerbaijanis, as these lands are our ancient territories," he added, according to Azerbaijani media. Azerbaijani Education Minister Emin Amularev also addressed the event held at Ordubad, a town close to the Armenian border. He said, in quotes, "The topic of Western Azerbaijan is of strategic importance to Baku." This was followed by an event at the United States Congress last week, held by the Baku Initiative Group on the same topic. This campaign by the regime in Baku is relentless. It's going on in political circles, academic ones. They're holding conferences inside of the country, outside of the country, and they're not going to let this go. And what does this really mean is that, one, they have absolutely no interest in peace, and second of all, they're laying the groundwork for future aggression against Armenia. As we move forward and discuss this, it's very important for us not to use their phraseology, the right of return and all this, because frankly, this has no basis in either political or legal basis. It's essentially all made up. This should be described always for what it is, which is an act of aggression against Armenia. Our prime minister was asked about this a few days ago, and let's see what our fearless leader had to say.
Դա ընդունելի չի, բայց մյուս կողմից ես ասում եմ, ես գիտեմ դա ինչ պատճառ այդտեղանքային կապերը գիտեմ։ Բայց նույն կերպ ընդունելի չի Ղարաբաղի շարժումը շարունակելու փորձերը Հայաստանի Հանրապետությունում։ Միացյալ Նահանգների Սենատում ձեր ասած թեմայով միջոցառում լինելու, բայց իհարկե լռության է մատնվում այն, որ ընդամենը 10 օր առաջ կամ մի քիչ ավելի առաջ հայկական կազմակերպությունները օրակարգ են մտցրել հարց, որը ըստ էության վերաբերվում է Ղարաբաղյան շարժման շարունակությանը։ Քանի ազգային ժողովի դահլիճում դրված են Ղարաբաղի դրոշներ, քանի այդ խոսույթը Հայաստանի Հանրապետությունում շարունակվում է, այդ հայլայն ձևով դա շարունակվելու է։
Let's review what the Prime Minister had to say. First and foremost, he's drawing this false legal and moral equivalency between the right of return to Artsakh, which is actually based on international law, and this farce that's promoted by the regime in Baku, which has actually no legal standing and has actually already been adjudicated many years ago by international courts, by the way. The other point is that the Western Azerbaijan narrative was started by the regime in Baku in 2022, which is a year before the ethnic cleansing. So actually wrong to even make this comparison because they were actually pushing this line even before the ethnic cleansing happened in September of 23. Furthermore, his own head of national intelligence, of the Foreign Intelligence Service, Christina Grigoryan, in her yearly report, actually outlined this as a possible threat and something that can be used to attack Armenia. So he's, in essence, he's being contradicted by his own intelligence chief. In conclusion, this entire issue is actually a nightmare for our country for two very specific reasons. The first one is it actually makes it clear to everyone that the peace agenda they talk about and the peace agenda that they actually just ran their campaign on is a complete and utter farce, and at best is simply a temporary ceasefire. Secondly, given the complete Finlandization of this regime, which means that they have no capacity to ever contradict the regime in Baku, they do not have the capacity to actually respond and defend our country in this situation. And as we all know, no servant is ever greater than his master. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode of Insights.
I'm your prison bitch, and you're a sex machine. I only